Solutions. We do promotional products and apparel. I'm doing this for 21 years. I know what you're all thinking, another promotional product company. I know what you're thinking, we have a million of them. But I'm going to explain to you how I'm a little bit different. So I'm going to use my friend Kim here as a prop. So we did these little chapstick things for her, for the dentist. My favorite dentist, by the way, you dentist. These little chapstick things for her. And I was at an event with her last week, and she gave me one. And I said, wait, I did these? I was like, you can't even read the print on them. You can't even see it. It says name and dental phone number. I said, I'm redoing them. Unacceptable to be able to see the print. She was so nice. She didn't even complain. So this is the kind of value add that Leone Market Solutions offers. We go above and beyond to make sure our clients are happy out there in the marketplace, supporting themselves. And I have some, if anybody wants anything, I brought some fun little headsets. You guys can take one, a couple of them up here, and some brochures on my company. So this is what we do, Leone Marketing Solutions. Thank you guys so much. I'm excited for this. Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce Lisa. Lisa Corrigan is the president and CEO of South Shore Staffing. She has more than 25 years of staffing industry experience. During her career, she has been a recruiter, a recruiting manager, business development manager, and branch manager in an industry for which she has a great deal of passion and interest. She acquired South Shore Staffing at the start of 2021 to build on the company's superior reputation for outstanding service to its local clients, and is excited to be developing new strategies for growth that will greatly benefit both current clients as well as new to come. Involved in many different professional organizations, she sits on the boards of both the South Shore Chamber of Commerce and the Neponset River Regional Chamber. South Shore Staffing is also a member of the Quincy Chamber and the Metro South Chamber. Lisa is a certified women's business owner. She's a lifelong resident of the area, resides in Sharon with her family and 3 dogs. She feels fortunate to live and work in the same community and believes in the importance of work-life balance. Lisa loves to travel, cook, spend time with family and friends, and find fantastic new restaurants on the South Shore. A graduate of Salve Regina in Newport, she still enjoys spending as much time as possible on the shore. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. So, well, again, thank you for having me do this. I met with Nancy last week in the middle of a nor'easter before an earthquake and a solar eclipse. So we made it happen, and it was a great meeting. We actually probably could have talked for all day, actually, and I wish we had the opportunity to do that. But I learned a lot in the short time that we did get to speak. Nancy has spent the majority of her career, or all of her career actually, in banking and lending. And you know, we had a few questions. I have a lot of questions for Nancy, but a couple things that I always like to ask, favorites. And she doesn't have a favorite book. She has a favorite author. So I found that interesting. She loves Ellen Hildebrand, and she has worked in banking all of her career. So a few questions I had an opportunity to ask Nancy is, your career started with a degree in economics because you thought you wanted to be a math major.
I did.
Why is that?
Who knows? So honestly, I think you and I had we had a great discussion. We were talking about how it really seems like when you're a teenager in high school, to make that decision of where you're going to go to school and how that impacts the rest of your life is a really large decision, and I don't think you are ready at that point in your life to make that decision. So the thought process that went through my head was, I want to live away, so I want to look at schools outside of Massachusetts. I'm not good at science, so I'm not going to be a doctor or a nurse. I don't think I have it within me to be an attorney. No offense, Randy. I think I'm pretty good and I enjoy math. High school math is an entirely different thing than college math, but I was like, I could major in math. Like, that sounds like I could do that. So I chose a very small school that had a really good math program, and when I got there, I realized that, you know, Calc 3 is not like intro to calculus in high school. So I quickly pivoted to economics because that still had a math component to it, and I could understand it. It made more sense to me. So, and I would say, advice I always give people now, especially my kids, was look at a larger university, because when you go in, you think you're going to do X, but when you get there, you might not, and to have a lot of different opportunities within that college is a big thing. So I went to a liberal arts school, so it was like that or dance. So I said I could. No, it had a huge dance program, a huge theater program, and then, economics.
Well, I mean, unlike myself, I chose my major because it required the least amount of math. So Nancy, how would you define success in your professional career and personally?
Yeah. I think that's a unique opinion for everyone, but I think both in my professional and personal life, it's health and happiness. Obviously, that comes in entirely different forms on the personal side versus the professional side. I am lucky, my husband and I are very lucky, we're both healthy, as are our kids. They have made it through the parenting of Nancy Curry, which is not an easy thing to do. I look back and there's a lot of decisions that are made throughout the time when you're raising your kids. And I don't think as parents you ever are confident enough that, yeah, that was the right choice. You always think, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And it's just with the benefit of time and seeing where your kids are and being able to look back and realize they're kind of where they want to be. And, while we did guide them, they made a lot of choices on their own and they seem very happy. And to me, that's the ultimate success, is seeing your kids thrive and doing what they want to do and be able to provide. We were in a position where we could provide those opportunities to them. I know that not everyone has that ability, but we did, and that is, for my husband and I, just the epitome of success for our personal life. Professionally, same thing. When I talk about health in the professional life, it's really mental health. Stress, there's a lot of stress, much more now than ever. With COVID and the economy being the way that it is and so many demands on so many people, I think managing your stress within an organization and within your professional development is the number one thing. I have had the luxury and pleasure of being able to work in a field that I love. I am in an industry, I don't know how it ended up, but I ended up being in banking, specifically commercial lending. It's not for everyone, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you like it and you're successful, it's a lot of fun. I've also been able to work with some people, a lot of type A personalities in this industry, and you have to navigate that, but they also know how to have a lot of fun, and that for me was the biggest thing. I don't think I would have stayed in this industry for as long as I have if it wasn't a sense of fun. You need to have that balance where you're going to work. It entails a lot of hard work, a lot of stress. You have goals, you have credit issues with customers, you have government oversight. So you need to be able to say, I can handle all this, because at the end of the day, we can kick back and have fun. We can have fun during the day when something silly happens. Say a car drives through your building and no one's hurt, but you can laugh about that. Because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So you got to get through it somehow. And I have managed to be able to work with a fabulous group of people over my 30-plus years, and knowing that I still have a lot of those friends from years gone by. It's because we all had fun together. So.
Good answer. And I will say, finding jobs for people for my entire career, when I meet people who have spent their entire career in a field that they love and have passion for and have success, it's a really unique thing. It doesn't happen. I'm sure everyone in this room could attest. Not a lot of people find their passion and spend their entire career doing it. So, I credit you and commend you, because it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
So
I will also say it's not all like rainbows and sunshine. It's not. There are a lot of
plenty of
difficult
ups and
times,
downs.
and there's been some stressful times in the banking industry, and that you can wear it on your shoulders, and you have to figure out what your outlet is and how you relieve your stress.
That's where the mental health part of it comes
Exactly.
in, because nothing is easy. It wouldn't be called work if it was easy.
Exactly.
So being able to let things roll off your shoulder, know when to laugh, know when to cry, know when to scream, yell at your kids, your husband, whoever.
Yeah, there are people here that I work with that don't know I know how to scream, so I know how to vent. So, but yeah, you have to, and then you move on.
And exactly, you have to move on. You can't hold it. So we're here with women in local leadership.
Yep.
What would you consider some of the roadblocks for women in your experience, or what you see maybe even for other gals?
Yeah. So, that's Lisa and I talked about this to some extent the other day. Lisa and I hope I'm not lumping you in with my age group, but we grew up in business in a different point in time. We had advantages more so than the generation before us, but we were also in an environment where there were not many women in leadership at all. So, and especially for me in banking, being in the commercial side of banking, it's a very male-dominated industry. And whereas I think women today still face some of those roadblocks, it's not as much. So I just want to kind of preface the whole comments with that. We've come a long way. There's still a long way to go. And having, I think other female leaders in a position to, navigate for you, being an advocate, being an ally, I think that's super helpful, and I think that's happening. But specifically, say, in the world of banking in Massachusetts, there might be 3, possibly 4 CEOs that are female right now, and that's probably the most we've ever had. I happen to have the pleasure of knowing one of them fairly well. We worked together, we had fun together. Even in the role that I have as a senior lender of a commercial lending group, there aren't many of them. I honestly, right now, Bethany, I'm looking at you, you might be able to think of one. I can't think of one, honestly. And I don't think of that on a day in and day out basis. If you did, you wouldn't get anything done. It doesn't, you just do what you do and, you make things work. But those are roadblocks, and I think a lot of industries are like that. I think there is a natural disadvantage from breaking that mold because it's just people's nature to relate to people that have the most relatable thing about you. So if your buddy on the golf course is up, you're spending more time with them. You're spending more time with people that are more like you. So what do women do? They have to figure out how they can make their inroads within that framework. I think there's a level below the C-suite that is fully populated now. And so maybe it's that next generation that will get to the C-suite. But the advice... You're
not going to work for another 20 years to get there?
I'm not going to work for another 20 years. But I think, and you and I talked about it, I had the benefit of 3 strong mentors, and they were all men. And they weren't formal mentorships, but when I look back, they all had a very strong impact on my career and my life. And I never felt different. And I think it's great, go to women's conferences, celebrate women, but take that leap and do other things. Being in commercial real estate, there were how many times, and I'm looking at Katie over there, she's one of my lenders, we go to events, and it's a 10-to-1 ratio. It is, you walk in, and it's all men. And you have to be confident enough in your abilities, your personality, to go in and give a firm handshake, say, hi, how are you, and just talk to people. And I think that will help you progress along your way. But you can't just say, I can't do it, it's all men, it's male-dominated. You just get to be yourself and do it, and you can do it. So,
I agree. Learn how to play golf.
So I will
a little bit of advice.
I will say shout out to my father. When I was in high school, but he wasn't talking about business. But he said if I ever want to spend time with the man I marry, I should learn how to golf. So I did, and it has served, I don't golf with my husband much, but I do golf for work. And let's get married because we don't golf together.
I think it's great. I actually think it's great to be able to do both.
Yeah, so I would recommend that. It's a good way to spend quality time with people of influence. It seriously is. It's a joke, but it's not a joke.
It is a joke, and it is not a joke, right? I like being out in nature and fresh air and, seeing the turtles on the green.
Oh, yeah,
stuff
I'm
like
the one
that.
taking the pictures of the trees that are turning colors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is fun. 30 years ago, if you asked me about golf, I would have said, no way. I'm a soccer player. I'm a softball player. I'm never going to play golf, but I love it.
And I would also say, along those lines, it doesn't hurt to learn sports. So my husband and my son were, ESPN was on in our house day in and day out. So it doesn't, like, commonality, conversations, what are you going to talk about? What, the weather is just, you can talk about it so much. So
Right.
It doesn't hurt.
And I mean, I think athletics and sports also makes people different in the sense that they become part of a team, they excel, whether they're an individual on the team or as they help that team excel, being that team player. So I think it's huge.
Yeah.
What would you consider a good quality in a leader?
So I think communication and respect are the two biggest qualities. This is kind of a blended. I know you have a few questions, but I'm gonna start here. I will. So the definition of someone I had as a bad leader was I was reporting to this gentleman, and apparently there was a reorganization, and I was now going to be reporting to someone else. But the only reason I found out is a weekly report came out. It's called Portfolio Report. It gives you all your loans, and it also lists who you report to. And I was no longer reporting to this person. Okay. Like, it's a big deal. Like, some people just don't know how to communicate, and sometimes it's good news and sometimes it's bad news. But you have to have the confidence in your people, the respect for your people, that they deserve to know what's going on without just finding out from an email or from it just makes people feel really bad, don't want to work for that organization, not valued. It's a simple thing, but communication and respect, I think, are the two biggest things. And then, doing the job that you're asking other people to do and having them see you do it, it goes a long way, I think. If it's something that I really couldn't do myself, then what is it about me that says you have to do this? So I think those are huge attributes. And treating people just individually, there may be a hierarchy in the work environment, but everyone's a person and everyone has a life story. And you should get to know everyone, because you don't know where that relationship's going to take you eventually. You don't know if you just help someone out in a bind. 10 years down the road, they're going to remember that, and they might look to you to come join an organization or whatever. So,
I agree. And we have this conversation all the time. I have it with my kids. Never burn a bridge. You never know who you're going to need at some point in your life. I read a great book recommendation that this has nothing to do with Nancy, but in speaking to what she has to say, there's a book called The Go-Giver, and it's about, I read it many years ago, about giving and not expecting anything in return. Just give, and it will come back. It may not come back tomorrow, it may not come back next year, but it'll eventually come back tenfold. And I mean, they're words to live by, I'm sure. We've all heard sayings like that, but it's true.
Yeah. It might never come back how you think it is, but you feel good.
You feel good. You feel good about it, and it makes you want to do for others. My mother always said, and this is cliche again, give and don't expect anything in return.
Yep.
Just give.
Yep. And sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. Like sometimes it's just something in your normal course, but it made a big impact on someone,
Absolutely.
and you have no idea.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Recognition or praise you could get, even when it's not even directed toward you, but knowing that you did for that person without them even saying it.
Yeah.
Seeing the success of someone that you trained or someone on your team and cheering them on, I think is huge. I mean, we talk about we're a small business, we're corporate in a sense, but we're in the trenches. My staff sees me get on the phones as much as they get on the phones. I don't tell Nicole or Tony, do this when I'm not going to do it. So I can attest to that, and I think it goes a long way. A couple things we talked about that were sad, I related to because I also lost my mom, but there were some big changes personally for Nancy that I'd like her to share that impacted her life and her path.
So when I was in my 20s, I had literally just gotten married. Probably 2 months after, and I got married young. My mother was diagnosed with cancer. And, you know, I'm one of a family of 5, but I think I was closest with my mom. I think probably everyone thinks that. But we had a very close relationship. She was my best friend. And that was a difficult time. She leaned on myself and my father very heavily because everyone else in my family was married, had kids, and we were very close. So at a young age, the stark reality of, you know, going through surgeries with her, going through treatment, going through the inevitable diagnosis that there was nothing more that could be done, that was devastating. And I think the reality of it was, I look back and feel honored that I could have done it, and I'm happy I was able to do it. But at 28, I was left without a mom and my best friend, and how that really just has framed my life. Celebrating, I'm actually getting emotional now, because I always do, celebrating the good times, the birth of my children. She wasn't there for it. I'm sorry. But it just, to this day, it impacts me. You know, celebrating the good times and the difficult times. She wasn't there to talk through things. And I found other people to fill that void, but it was a void. And it changed how I looked at the world. And I know people here have, but it was just my whole adult life was ahead of me, and she wasn't there. So that was probably the biggest impact that I've had in my life.
A void that never goes away.
No. And then I look at my kids and how proud she would be of them, and how my daughter is exactly her, and you know, and then I see my daughter in my relationship, and very much see that relationship that I had with my mother, and so.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know how much more time we have.
I'm sorry, I see teary eyes here. I don't.
I mean, it
was not my intention. Thought I could get through that one.
I'm sure many people in the room have lost a mom, and it's the worst. I'm going to say probably the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life too.
Yeah.
Funny story. When we were chatting, you know, we talked about men in the work world and women and making their way, and I want Nancy to talk about her experience with choosing to get her MBA, and what led her to that, and what motivated her even more.
So this is funny, and I didn't even realize when I said it. You were shocked when I said it. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of bad, huh? And I didn't say something bad. I just mean the experience was bad. I could say something bad, but so when I was young, fresh out of college, just a year out of college, like I said, I went to a small liberal arts college, ended up at a bank, realized the path I wanted to take was to go into commercial lending. But I didn't have a business degree. I had an economics degree, but didn't have a business degree. And I realized most people going through that path had either an undergrad business degree or an MBA. So I was like, I guess I'll have to get my MBA. And I did it part-time. And one of the gentlemen that I was working with at the time, and at the same time, a counterpart of mine, about the same age, a man who was married, was going to do the same thing. And so this gentleman said to my counterpart, that's great, you're going to do great, you know, you should do it. And he looked at me and he said, you're married, you're going to have kids, and you're going to stay at home. Why would you waste your money? And I didn't think twice. I was just like, oh, well, yeah, no, I don't know why you would make that assumption. But I didn't, as Lisa said, now you could never say that. But back then, everyone said whatever they wanted to say, and it was just taken for granted that women, you know, worked for a couple of years and then stayed home and raised their kids, which there's nothing, everyone has their different, you know, preferences. That was never my preference. But in hindsight, it really, so number one, I was like, oh, God damn it, I'm going to get my MBA now. I'm going to use it, I'm going to be successful, if anyone knows me. But it made me really sit back and go, well, what do I want? And I knew I wanted that master's, but I knew I wanted to get it before I had kids, because that would be super difficult to balance working, college, and kids. So I did that. But I also knew that it was going to be, I wasn't going to stay home full time. I wanted to, you know, forge my career. You know, I did work part-time. My husband was super helpful and really was kind of like, however you want to do this, you should do it. Do what makes you happy. But that really just, you know, I'm super competitive, and if someone puts a roadblock in front of me, I say, yeah, no, and that, like I said, I didn't even think twice when I told you, and you were like horrified.
Well, I'm horrified because, of course, we're a little small business, and we joke because we don't have an HR department, and we say things that, you know, in the office among each other that shouldn't be said. But I'm also of the generation where I was coming up the you know, the pike in my career where, you know, I had hiring managers and VPs and CEOs that wouldn't hire women of a certain age.
Yep. Well, they could ask you if you were, you know, they could literally ask. It's no longer legal, but they could say, what are your plans? Are you pregnant? Are you going to get, like,
do you,
yep.
I mean, I've, since owning South Shore Staffing, I've even had clients call and say, you know, use the actual term, I don't want a gal of childbearing ages. And I'm like, what did you just say?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
Thank God you said it on the phone and you didn't put it in an email, because that just, you can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know.
And I will say, you know, I live in a neighborhood where almost every mom chose the path of staying home. And there was a little bit of guilt I felt, you know, leaving. Here I go, you know, off to daycare and off to work. But I always knew it was the right choice for me. I think everyone has their own choice. We all needed to be happy. I was going to be happiest. My kids were happiest when I was happiest. And that just wasn't the path that was going to make me happy. And I think that was the path for people that made them happy. And I think there's a lot of judging going on from both sides, you know, stay-at-home moms or working moms, and there shouldn't be. I think everyone's situation is their situation. If that is what works for them, it's what works for them. Right. And I think that's where we are much more now than we were when you and I were navigating that.
I agree. And I don't want to say a victim of that, but...
No, I think we brought it forward.
Yes, I agree. Although I think from what I'm understanding now with some of the younger generations that are coming up, things are shifting back toward women staying home and not having the career per se, but the career is being a mom and a wife. You know.
Well, and maybe,
so
you wonder, is that because their parents? I don't know. It would be an interesting...
Because their parents work.
Yeah. I mean, I see just from my daughter, she is me. Like, I see her and how she works. I'm like, oh, okay, I raised a monster, but but I don't, you know, she's very, you know, looking forward and trying to advance. And but you wonder if maybe some people were raised by working moms and said, yeah, that's not for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It would be a good
it would be.
Thing
I'm
to
sure there'll be a study.
So couple more things that I found interesting when I was chatting with Nancy, and this is, again, goes back to, you know, probably an emotional time for her or an emotional topic, but I did ask, and it's because in my life in learning and having mentors, the question is always asked, like, if you could have a 30-minute conversation with anyone in the world, who would it be?
Well, I think we can all guess who that would be.
And we had the same answer, but...
Yeah, which I think is, you know, it wouldn't be, you know, JFK, it would be my mother. And mostly because we lost so much time. What would she think? What would she say of my life? What would she say of my kid's life? My whole family. Yeah. It's not about the career, honestly. It's about the personal side. I also think she'd be proud of me for my career, because I think she was I think she would have wanted to work full time. She wanted to be a dentist. Her mother said, just work in the dental office. So I think my parents were both my biggest supporters, but I think, you know, it would just be fascinating to see what she thought of everything.
Oh, I'm sure she'd be very proud.
I hope so.
And one last thing, and I think we could probably end it. One piece of advice you would give to any young girl today. I have your answer written down, but I know you'll...
Be true to yourself. Be honest. Sometimes the honesty can be difficult, but be true to yourself, be confident, and be honest. I think those 3 traits will get you as far as you want to go. And just go as far as you want to go. You don't have to be the CEO. You have to be happy. You have to find what makes you happy in your life. And, you know, sometimes it'll take a little work, but the work is worth it in the end. So, but those, I think, are the three biggest takeaways I've tried to live my life by.
Yeah. You touched a little bit on mentorship and how that kind of helped shape you. Have you created a formal or informal kind of mentorship program within your organization, and what impact have you seen on that in the next kind of level of leaders that are coming up?
Yep. So I will caveat, the mentors I had was nothing formal. It was just alignment with people, and it turns out we had very strong relationships. I have been part of formal mentorship. The bank previous to the one I'm at now had a formal program, and it was helpful. You know, unfortunately, the person they gave me to mentor was already a successful young man who was already well on his way. So we used to just chat together, and, you know, I would give him advice and stuff. I didn't feel it worked out well. I didn't feel the formal worked out as much as an informal mentorship did. I think formal mentorships are great. It gets you views. So he was in a different area of the bank, so I think he got to see what commercial's like. And he, you know, I took him to some meetings, but it just seemed forced. But now we're good friends, and I think that helped. But I think the informal mentorship is much stronger. I do think there are people here today that I hope that I feel I'm a mentor for them, and I hope that they feel they're along the right path that they want to be on. And it's just kind of keeping that open line of communication, providing your guidance and suggestions, but kind of letting them choose their path and then advocating for them, kind of setting this is what you have to do. And if you take these steps, we're going to help you along the way to get to that next point in your career. And I think that can be helpful. Forcing people to go out and get involved in, say, a chamber event or an industry event, kind of all that stuff that people aren't used to and it's out of their comfort zone, I think is helpful as well. But I honestly think the informal is more effective than the formal.
Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Jackie Collins, and I am a customer of Abington Bank.
Oh, good. Thank you.
They've been great.
Actually, the president of Abington Bank is here.
So with all the challenges that you described during the conversation, it's impressive when I watch you and listen to you speak, come across as a leader and very confident. But my question is around, what are the attributes that you have that you were able to tap into to get past all the challenges and then reach the position that you're currently in?
So I appreciate the comment because I was not confident about a half an hour ago. No, I don't like that. Contrary to this, I don't like it. Lisa made it very comfortable. So I think it's my Irish Catholic upbringing where I think I have a chip on my shoulder, and I just wanted to prove to people. I have this whole, I like to prove that I can do things, and that's a very self-motivating thing, and I don't like to take no for an answer. So I think really it is just your determination that makes you not give up. If I did not enjoy the job I was doing, it's easy to give up, but I felt it was worth kind of, there are times when you've just got to stick it out and get through the muck because you can see other people are doing it. I think I could be as good as them. I think I'm smart enough. I think I see them doing it. Why can't I do it? Like, what is it about me that would prevent me from doing it? And just keeping moving on. And yeah, I think I was naive enough to not realize that there were those sometimes the obstacles. I think in hindsight, there were probably more obstacles than I realized, but I just chose not to see them sometimes.
Or not let them.
Yeah, like seriously, that I didn't even think twice about that, just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing that. I didn't see that as an obstacle.
Yeah.
mentioned banking's a male-dominated industry, and coming up in it, you know, you're probably one of the only women trying to like pioneer into it. At what point in your career did you feel like that wasn't going to be a problem anymore? Like, not a problem, but a barrier for you anymore? Like, hey, I made it. I'm going to be a successful woman in banking. Or is there just
excellent question, Mike. I don't know that I've made it yet. Like, I don't know that I ever had that thought. I think when I navigated through the child raising years, I think once I got to a point where my kids were self-sufficient, to a point where I didn't have to get that phone call, they have an ear infection, and just kind of be on, you know, damage control wherever I was. I think once I was able to get through that and not get fired, not lose my mind, I tell the story. So my first son was born end of '96. I think my first day slotted to go back from maternity leave was April Fool's 1997, which was a massive snowstorm. And I'm sure everyone
I remember that. It was
oh my God, they closed daycare? No, I didn't know. I'm like, I'm not going back to work. They're not, like, I didn't think they would let me come back because I had to call in the first day. I was like, oh, I'm a horrible employee, I'm a horrible mom, I'm a horrible. So once I think once my kids were in middle school and I was back to really, you know, successfully generating business for the bank, I think that's when I realized, on a consistent basis. And that's when you look back and realize, oh, I have built up a book of business, I have figured out how to underwrite a loan, I can do this. I think that's when I felt, yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next bill is May 2nd.
Yeah. It's Tammy Lynch from Atlantic Symphony Orchestra. I'm just wondering, is it here? It is at Friendship Home. It is moderated by Andrea Mansfield, the executive director of Friendship Home.
Thank you. Ah, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was a piece of cake.